Join Mark Lewis and R.O.A. for an exclusive interview with Bruce Howard Kulick from Grand Funk Railroad. Real rock and roll news. From the legends of rock, you found rockonamerica.live. We're bringing rock and roll to America and beyond. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe.
Cue the spotlight on Bruce Howard Kulick, a name renowned in the world of rock and roll. Born in the heart of Brooklyn, New York City in 1953, Kulick's journey to fame was one of passion and perseverance. Known for his stint as guitarist for the legendary band Kiss, from 1984 to 1996, his guitar riffs echoed through the hearts of fans worldwide. But the story doesn't end with Kiss. In the years that followed, Kulick joined forces with John Corabi in Union, rocked stages with Blackjack, and for more than 2 decades, from 2000 to 2023, he was the lead guitarist for Grand Funk Railroad. His melodious journey also includes several solo albums, session work with various artists, and the influence of his older brother, Bob Kulick, a virtuoso guitarist and producer in his own right. Join Mark Lewis and R.O.A. as we sit down with Bruce Kulick in this exclusive interview.
This is Mark with Rock Over America, and I'm interviewing legendary guitar player and musician Bruce Howard, who is a member of the following: Union, Grand Funk Railroad, Eric Singer Project. He's been in Monster Circus, Grand Funk Railroad, Kiss, and his great solo career. And have I missed anything yet?
No, I mean, we'll fill in the gaps as we go.
There we go. Okay, let's start with the first question, Bruce. I kind of like to ask everybody this, particularly when I interview them for the first time. Who were your musical influences? Who influenced you to play the guitar, and who or what influenced you to the point that you realized that you wanted to be a guitar player? This is what you want to do for your career.
Well, it started with the Beatles, and from then I got to admit that the whole British invasion of the bands that came from England with, of course, we know Hendrix is American, but, it took him going to England to become a star, and I love Jimi Hendrix and The Who and Cream. Eric Clapton was a big hero to me, and I, just thought, I remember I recently found some scrapbook of all these photos that I used to cut out of all the magazines, and there were a lot of Cream pictures, I'll tell you that. So Cream being one of the bands that I was really into. Not only is Eric such a great guitarist, but Jack Bruce was, this unique bass player. So I really liked the fact that all 3 of the bands kind of that I've mentioned, all the bass playing is always interesting too, like the Beatles, obviously, and even Hendrix had good bass lines. So of course the Who had Ed Whistle. So I had so much to learn from them, and it just went on and on and on with all the amazing groups that came out of England. And then, of course, America started to produce some great groups as well. But that whole, kind of era that I grew up in, the mid-'60s, really fine-tuned my ears with music, and it just carried on, and I was very fortunate, I feel, in some ways, that I grew up during that whole era, because that music's still important and relevant today.
Let me ask you a question. You mentioned Hendrix, and I'm a big Hendrix fan. In fact, I don't know if you got it. I just got the Bellies and Neptune album. If you didn't get it, you want to grab that. But what about Frank Marino? Because a lot of people that were into Hendrix and are into Hendrix also love Frank Marino too. So I always like to kind of ask that, because he was, to me, is like, if Jimi Hendrix had lived, that's where Jimi Hendrix was going to go. Frank
right.
I
heard that about Frank, but I never really got into his stuff. I didn't.
Oh, if later after we get off the phone, if you can give me an email so I can send you this too, I'll send you a link to his website and a couple of YouTube videos. I think you'll really dig it. What is the first band that you kind of remember before you got famous? Either your very first band or the first memorable band that had a lot of good memories for you that you started up playing and had a good vibes from that you'd like to talk about?
That I started to play with?
Yeah.
Well, I did have my first group that I did originals with, which was a couple of guys in my neighborhood. We never did a gig, and we only recorded like 6 or 7 songs. but I did wind up finding that tape and putting it together and making it like an actual limited edition record that I put out, or shall I say CD, really. I put that out about 2 years ago on my website. I just named it KKD for the initials of the last names of the three guys, but we were really unique because Mike, the main guy, Mike Katz, the bass player, was very talented and also totally into, Cream and the British rock kind of thing, and the music was very unique, a combination of kind of a progressive Cream style blues thing. We recorded it in 73 and 74. I wound up calling the album 1974.
Okay.
And when you listen to the playing on that, and even Classic Rock Magazine picked up one of the tracks, you can still hear what I'm about, but, I was obviously very young. I was like 20, 21 in that band. So I found that really fascinating, that I still had the kind of building blocks of my music, my guitar playing music style back then. And even though I know I can play much better now, or I know much more on the guitar, it was great to hear that and to share it with my fans. And again, I just did the limited edition because it didn't warrant a full big push like BK3 does or something, but I got a lot of great comments from it, and then that helped me, obviously the first big touring thing I did that was important was Meatloaf. I did tour behind some disco artists that had big hits, but...
let's talk about that for a second, because that's a little different. I didn't know about the Meatloaf either. Let's talk about that. Who did you tour behind?
Well, there was a guy, I was playing in local bands in New York that were, how do I say, we were just cover groups, but at the time, you're talking about the mid-70s, there were a lot of disco hits, of course.
Yeah.
So Steely Dan was big, and then, you have a song like Frankenstein by Edgar Winter Group, but then there'd be, some of the disco stuff. So one of the agents that hooked up with George McRae, who had a big hit called Rock Your Baby. And he was really huge in Europe, and even though there were gigs to play in America, my first touring out of the country was to back up George McRae. So I was kind of like a rock guy. Casey and the Sunshine Band actually wrote, the main guy in Casey and the Sunshine Band wrote that hit. And believe me, the guitar playing was very clean and nothing to do with rock and roll, but it was a good experience for me because I got to go to Europe, and first time I was, flying around the world, basically. And that lasted for about 6 months, actually, and then after that, there was this other artist, Andrea True. She was the porno star, and I wound up doing this song more, exactly. I was in it, too. And toured some Army bases with her, went to Italy. It was really, again, it was a band that I worked with, and we backed her, but it was interesting work, and took me around, and, it certainly taught me what it is to be on the road, and be thrown in various different kind of, situations for gigs, But I really did want a rock gig, and I remember complaining to my brother. Bob was already, being a little older than me. He was already making some real inroads in New York with being a session guy,
right.
Stuff like that. And but he always had his ear out for what was possible for a good gig for him. And then that's when the Meatloaf thing happened. Meatloaf finally got the record deal, was ready to put it out. Now he was putting together a band in New York, and my brother got the call, and he brought me in, and they did want 2 guitarists, so we became the dual lead guitarists, kind of like the Dick, Steve Hunter, Dick Wagner kind of thing from
right.
Cooper and Lou Reed. That was the thing, and actually there's product of that out. The more recent versions for the past few years of Bat Out of Hell has a couple live tracks. That band from '78 performing, and there was a DVD that came out late last year from a German TV show where we did probably about an hour set or a little more. So it's interesting that I called that my first rock gig, even though I wouldn't call Meatloaf a real rock and roll artist, but it was certainly much more so than some of those disco things that I did.
Well, he would see, in a lot of ways he is considered, I know what you're saying, he's considered pop and this and that, very operatic, very theatrical, would definitely qualify as rock. So do you think that kind of helped discipline you? Because, I mean, like, just like when Steve Ray Vaughan, I'm sure you may know the story about that, he played on David Bowie's album Left Dance and made the decision to take Double Trouble to Montreux for the Jazz Festival rather than go on tour. And do you think that, just like that, do you think that kind of disciplined you a little bit and got you kind of in a good perspective for going on tour? Because some guys will go handle it really well, and you know that some musicians will go out there and they go on the road and they just kind of lose their minds out there.
Right. Well, I mean, the Meatloaf tour was really hard, actually, because Meatloaf got pretty crazy, and we went from being booed off the stage to selling out arenas, you know what I mean, and playing stadiums. So it was quite a ride, but I have to admit that I learned a lot and saw a lot on that tour that it really prepared me for anything, so that by the time I got thrown into stuff like, well, first I had my own band with Michael Bolton called Blackjack, and did some other session work for people like Billy Squier, but when the big next gig came up where I was really had, you know, the opportunity of a lifetime with Kiss, I was certainly, you know, prepared for anything that could happen, you know.
Right, I want to talk to you very briefly about that with Michael Bolton and about Billy Squier, because now we're going to, besides Meatloaf, I'm sure Meatloaf is probably very fanatical, not crazy mean fanatical, but just almost like, kind of like things I've heard about Fred Durst, although people are probably going to listen to, oh God, he mentioned Limp Bizkit, but you know, so be it. Fred Durst is very much a perfectionist to make sure that everything is right, so when the fans hear it, they don't feel ripped off, they feel like they got their money's worth and then some. Everything I know about Billy Squier and Michael Bolton would seem, just like Meatloaf, it would seem kind of the same thing. They want to do it and do it precise and do it right. So I'm sure that kind of helps formulate your training, if you will, and your experience and your discipline for what was about to come too.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Billy Squier in the studio was very meticulous. He had a little notebook, and that's something that whenever I've done my solo records, I always kept a notebook like that, you know, where you're making all the notes of, well, you know, what amp did you use, what guitar, how did you know, anything that might have been a part of the creative process that you wanted to document. So I learned that from Billy, and it was a lot of fun watching that record. It was the tail of the tape, the one before that he really took off, but there's still great music on that, and it was a lot of fun to work with him. I was already at Blackjack with Michael, and Michael was a perfectionist, and quite of a, you know, we were kind of brothers in arms in that project, and he certainly had his desire to be, you know, the rock star frontman. I mean, obviously he became very successful in a different style of singing, or as a different type of star, but he was always destined to be a big star, and I recognized that. So it was nice to experience the kind of rock and roll end of Michael's beginnings. You know, unfortunately, it didn't explode the way his later years would, what he was able to accomplish.
Right.
Yeah, I really did absorb things from everybody, and it's a good point you make that, well, on your path through your career, what you take with you through these experiences can be very valuable.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, because a lot of people and we're going to go into Kiss here in just a second, but that's an interesting story, and I got a couple questions on that, but you know, a lot of people just, when they start or they get going, they just don't get that bad. So that's kind of like the Steve Ray Vaughan. Even like Eddie Van Halen, even though he's doing Van Halen, he played in the Thriller album. I'm sure that put some discipline in them too, just before they really blew up stuff. Kind of a very, very interesting, different experience path to go on, and that's actually really, regardless of what anybody says about Michael Bolton with what he was doing before, it's actually a very, very cool path to go on and have the experience for. So, next question is this. Now, you go to Kiss. Of course, Kiss is known for very, very, I mean, the thing that really helped put them on the map is they had said they became the band they never got to see in concert. That's why they did what they did with the makeup and the pyrotechnics and the lights and the whole and everything. I mean, they amped the stage show level so far above what anybody was doing is not funny. And like, I mean, when they first started, it was very difficult. When the Live One came out, as you know, shortly after that, he just boom on the map. And of course, that Ace Frehley, who's the trademark guitar player for Kiss, and then Ace left, and then Vinnie Vincent came in for a very short period of time. Now, going to a little bit different style guitar player, a little bit more of like kind of the virtuo guitar shredder style guitar player, and they're kind of still amping it up. And then you got the call to come in and do Kiss. Now, the thing about that is, how does somebody, first of all, first question is, how does somebody get the opportunity to play the Kiss? Did you audition? Did like Gene and Paul find out who you were and they got a hold of you or your manager and go, hey, we heard you're really good, we heard your stuff with Blackjack and Billy Squire and saw you with Meatloaf and wanted you to come in? Or how does this work?
Well, what was interesting about my whole situation with Kiss was my brother didn't know them, so I was always kind of like, they were aware of me, In New York, of course, for a big city, there was a music scene that a lot of people knew everybody. And,
right.
There was this one guy, Mitch Weissman, who sometimes wrote with Paul Stanley, who looked a lot like Paul McCartney.
Okay.
He was a Beatlemania and all. And he was I don't want to say fan of mine, but I'm just saying he was a supporter of mine that I know. He would tell Paul that Bruce is a good guitarist, and my brother would tell him too. But it meant a lot that he came from some other people too. So at a certain point, when Mark St. John, I don't know if he was getting sick then or just he wasn't playing what Paul wanted. Paul was producing Animal Eyes. And next thing you know, like my brother before, I got the call to be the ghost guitarist. You know what I mean? In other words, come on in and see if I can do some solo work for them. And my name won't be listed, but it was one of those. And it went well, and Paul liked what I did. And then next thing you know, he just happened to say something cryptic to me, as in, "Don't cut your hair." It was about shoulder length then, but I didn't know what was up. But I guess at that point they knew that Mark was not well, and they probably we're still going to go to Europe and get going and tour with or without him. So that's how I got the call. So it was a little unusual how I walked into the situation. And in the beginning, of course, what was offered to me was 2 to 6 weeks, meaning the European tour, depending on how Mark was doing. And then they realized they would honor at least Mark's contract and give him a shot when he was well.
Right.
That was back in the American part of the tour at the end of '84. But I had the home court advantage, really. I was the right guy for the job. And the rest is history. I didn't expect it to even last 12 years. But, or rather, shall I say, I didn't think it would last 2 or 3 years, and it turned into 12 years. So
right.
Quite excited, and I was, didn't realize, that each record we were doing and each thing that was going down was, in a way, I would say, you're making history with Kiss, and it's remarkable to see the influence that all that's been on all the fans, through the years, and that even now there's like young generations who were affected by the MTV performance, or they see the Crazy Nights album and they love it, or Revenge, whatever. Pretty interesting. What a terrific band to have had 12 years in, because they just seem to, not only still be important in rock and roll, it's just that they're still like amassing new fans, to the phenomenon of the band.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to ask you a question, jump ahead a little bit on this, and I hate to ask this, just like I really hate to use the term hair band for anything. But, and if you don't want to answer this, that's fine. It's a simple question. Do you think being in Kiss kind of really helped to get your name out there for who you are, too? I think that's a fair question, but maybe that's not a good question to ask. Or do you think you would have gone, if you hadn't got the call, let's say you just did the ghost work, do you think that your career path would have still gone where it was gone, per se? Or do you think that being in Kiss is definitely an opportunity that definitely helped your career?
The years at Kiss was just such a huge thing for my resume. There's no doubt that I've had so many. I'm always aware that I have talent, but when you add the talent with a big name like Kiss on your resume, I think it really opens doors that may not have been open before. So I owe a lot to my time in the band and the fact that I did my job and did it well, and that I kind of waved the flag of the 80s Kiss, if you know what I mean, even though it went into the 90s. So would I have not, I continued to work if I didn't have the Kiss years? Yeah, but it's just, again, when someone comes out of a band that's as iconic as Kiss, it just lends a lot of weight, and it's kind of an interesting band because you know there are people that don't care about the band, but the ones that do, especially when they really know the band, it's remarkable how passionate they are about it, and that kind of following and that kind of respect that you get from some of the fans just makes you stand out in other situations. So it was, you know, obviously a real golden ticket for me. What I feel that only helps enhance everything I can do with my career.
Oh yeah, well I mean the band is just, we're going to talk about this for maybe 5 more minutes and then kind of move on because I know you don't have a lot of time, but I appreciate you taking the time today. I mean, when you're in there, I mean, regardless of what anybody wants to say about Kiss, it's just like a lot of other acts. There are people that are going to say all sorts of things about all sorts of different groups and bands. That one's good or that one sucks. But the point is, you don't get to be that big and that legendary and have that much staying power for that long unless you do a whole bunch of things right, and you know that. And I mean, they cross the diversity of sound from 70s sound. I mean, they take the makeup off, that gets them big, to connect, because we know who's behind the mystique now. But I mean, everything that they've done their sound, I mean, they're a band that is able to translate a variety of sounds from straight rock to kind of a garagey rock sound in the beginning to metal, to, if you want to call it, I hate to use the term hair band. But I mean, this is a band that could probably do, I mean, I don't know if they could do, they would teach you how to dance and some of the stuff unless you got the right guitar player there. You probably could do something like that. But I mean, they're not going to do like rock opera, but I mean, per se. Even though Paul did the Phantom of the Opera, but I mean, this is a band that anything you need them to do, they could do. It's just amazing. So, what is it like? Let's talk about this for a couple minutes. Take us through this. When you first go out on tour, what was it like? When you were there first few weeks, what was that experience like?
Well, first of all, you know, there I am. You know, it's all, you know, like a first class experience, and I'm off to England to you know, start the tour with them, and I was quite excited. And I'm glad I hadn't traveled before over to Europe and all that, but you know, here I am riding in a limo with Eric Carr and Jim Hall in the other car, and you know, we're playing these really fascinating halls throughout England, and I felt like $1 million. You know, what kept me grounded was the fact that for whatever reason at the time, Eric Carr wasn't very happy, and there was some political stuff going down that of course I just walked into the situation.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. That's what I like to call the family business. That's between you guys.
And you know, next thing you know, Eric's like, you know, complaining about things, and I'm like, would you shut up? You know, this is amazing. You know what I mean? You know, we're selling you know, we're doing a big concert, and I'm sitting in a limousine with you, going to first class hotel, and I'm wearing Kiss. You know, don't bring it down, okay?
Right.
But you know, it took me a while to be in the band to get like what his gripes were, valid or not. But you know what I mean? You know. So. Yeah,
and we like I said, when we go through this, just for a few minutes, because I want to get to, there's so much of this stuff together, you two. I don't want to talk about that. That's why I call the family business. It's nobody's business. We'll just say there were some disagreements.
Yeah, but again, the whole opportunity for you know, Gene and Paul also being very, very professional, and they wanted to put on a great show. And here we are, basically announcing a new guitar player, you know, to be on stage. You know, the British press were very up to date, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The American press, so they knew that it was Bruce that was going to be there. But I got to admit that it was, you know, I was received well by the fans, and once I got past the shaky knees of the first gig, I had a great time. You know what I mean? And I was loving every gig. You know, it was a lot of fun. I felt the pressure of like, oh my God, I'm the guitarist in Kiss. I gotta be great. You know, but that's where all the other years of experience and knowledge come into play.
Now, just 2 more questions about Kiss and we move forward, and there's going to be a question relating to Gene and also his son on the solo album. So, and by the way, great solo album, by the way, a great solo album. Really have loved that. My writer is getting ready to send that in a couple of days, a review for BK3. What went through your mind, and what was it like when you finally found out that you were going to be the guy in the band?
Well, I mean, I kind of felt it, you know, for a while, even before they asked me, but I was always very, very humble about it, and I was very supportive of making sure that Mark did get every opportunity positive, healthy attitude would only help me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because it was just the right thing to do. I didn't want to be, like Nancy Kerrigan or something, or what happened with those two ice skaters, you know what I mean?
Right.
When I got the gig, I felt like I did all right, you know what I mean? I did the right job, and I felt I also really felt, and it was nothing against Mark personally, but I just knew that my style of guitar playing was much more compatible with Kiss, and that I had the kind of temperament and the vibe that belonged to the band. And I kind of felt disappointed that I got glossed over when they chose him anyway, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it was like the skies opened up and there was this opportunity for me, and I took the call, and I took the ball and ran with it, if you know what I mean. So I felt, as much as I felt like a sigh of relief that, all right, now I'm in the band, and then I realized, okay, well, let's turn the page, and now it's the new chapter for what it is to really, have this responsibility of the guitarist, not just this short-term kind of like week-by-week contract of helping out the band. Now I'm in the band, so that bore another set of kind of responsibilities.
Okay, now this is going to be a very short two-part question, then we move on from here to wrap up the Kiss chapter of your life. Two-part, and they kind of go together. Part A is, what is life like at this point from now on until you left Kiss, being a member of Kiss, from the rehearsals to the touring, putting the albums out and the songwriting and all that? What's the experience like? And then how did your life change? I mean, I don't want to talk about bad, like I said, bad, crazy stuff, but what is your life like differently, if at all, off stage? Because I'm sure that, for a lot, as opposed to a lot of musicians, it's got to be a really big change being off stage and something like that. Just like if you're Paul McCartney, maybe it's harder to kind of walk down the street and get a sandwich now.
Well, I lived in New York originally, and it being such a big city, it didn't matter that much,
Okay.
Moms or anything. Obviously, it was a lot easier to, impress a young girl at the time,
Right.
It's just such a famous band and all, but I shortly after that moved out to L.A., and again, L.A. being where all the movie stars are and so many musicians. It was kind of cool that I got to meet some of the other hair band people that I was suddenly hanging out with the guys in Rad or Motley Crue and things like that. And I was never a party animal anyway, so I didn't go down the path of being drunk on Sunset Boulevard and carrying on like a fool, And in fact, I settled into a relationship which eventually I got married. Of course, I was divorced by like 96, 97, but the point is, I just saw the gig as more an opportunity to do what I love, which is play music, and at the same time, I had some security so I could actually, finally own a home or, and just settle into I could breathe a little bit because, it's a hard business to wonder where your next paycheck is going to be.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of friends who are musicians. We can mention some names, and we probably have some of the. Well, I know we have some of the same friends because of Brent and Todd and that, but yeah, it's kind of all over the place. So now, after Kiss, what happens next in your career?
Well, that was a real hard period of time for me because you got to remember that when you join a group like Kiss, everything's taken care of. You got your roadie, you got your management, you got your publicist, and even though I didn't handle a lot of those people, it was really Gina Paul's thing to do all the business. But everything was taken care of, if you know what I mean. So now suddenly, in some ways you look at Gina Paul as almost being like mom and dad,
Right.
I'm not going to say whose mom and whose dad. But the whole thing of now is suddenly I'm not in the band, and after that many years, there was a lot of adjustment. I felt kind of like as if I was thrown out of the house, if you know what I mean.
Got it.
And I, of course, spoke to some of the business people that I really admired.
And can I interject something real quick? That was because they were basically doing the reunion with, my brain is considered with Ace and Peter, and Ace and Peter, so they did that, and they did that at, if I remember right, they did that reunion show at Tiger Stadium in Detroit, and they kind of brought it back from that point.
Right. the MTV Unplugged was the catalyst to get it going because
right.
We were doing these convention tours, and MTV loved the whole acoustic thing, and then next thing you know, okay, well, we'll do acoustic, but we want you guys to do, a reunion, and then, Ace and Peter being a time of their careers where they were definitely looking for something better than what they had going on,
Yeah.
So it was the right time. It was like 20-odd years or so from when, the original guys were together. And it made sense. I mean, it wasn't, that I was in the band and that I wasn't going to be in the band because of something I did. It's just, they could make $40 million a year instead of $4 million a year.
Right.
And you can't blame that man,
Yeah.
So, I reached out to some of the people that I worked with that I liked, someone like Larry Mazur, who's, a pretty well-known manager who was involved with Kiss during certain years. And he right away mentioned John Corabi to me because John just went through a pretty uncomfortable situation with Motley Crue.
Right, and that's got had to be pretty rough on him to have to come in. And it was a great album, too, because one of my favorite Motley Crue songs.
It was so different, that album,
yeah.
And, the fans just didn't dig it, and they blamed it all on him, and the next thing you know, he's out of a gig, and Larry was always a big fan of his, too. So the chemistry with John and I from the second we got together, and we're very different kinds of people, but really worked, and we're still, close, and, he makes an appearance on BK3, for example. But
right.
It took a little while to get what union would be, but it didn't take long for me to have a chemistry with somebody who I felt, every band seems to have two real, important guys in the band. So for union, it was going to be John and I,
Right.
And off we went. We found Brent Fitz, who's now touring with Slash, which is wonderful, who also appears on BK3. We found this guy, Jamie Hunting, really, really talented bass player. And we were working with this guy, Kurt Cuomo, who I met through Kiss, because he was involved with some of the Carnival Soul songs and then Cyber Circus songs. So John, Kurt, and I wound up writing the material and producing it, and then all of a sudden we had a record deal. Even though it was considered an independent deal back then, they were a lot larger than where the record business is now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was, we didn't get the kind of breaks that I would have liked, but I really stand by those records, and we do have quite a few fans that really dug the two studio albums. And
there isn't anything, just to preface this, there isn't anything bad or terrible. Everything you've done is everything from really good to phenomenal. You haven't done it, and I'm saying that objectively, looking at things when I write it objectively, just look at how it meets the criteria and stuff. Everything you've done has been really, really good. You have this knack. Well, outside of Kiss, that's just kind of you just came into that one because of the right situation. But everything that you've done, Joseph, being from that point on and became part of, even in the Kiss stuff and all your work before that, everything you've done has been really, really good. You have a knack for that.
Well, thanks. And it meant a lot for me, and it was a lot of responsibility when it came to doing the union thing. And I will be honest, John wouldn't argue with you about it as much as, John gets the basic parts of business. I was the guy who had to deal with the nuts and bolts, really, and it was a big responsibility, but I didn't mind, I recognized, I learned so much from watching Gene and Paul have a real hands-on approach to Kiss,
Right.
They certainly could have just played up and acted like rock stars 24/7, but instead they're signing checks and they're going over budgets and making sure everything kind of works business-wise for the band. So in the end, I had to do that with Union, with, of course, the help of some of the business people that helped structure what we were going to do. But and it was rewarding on that level, and I never looked at whether or not we were going to sell, 50,000 or 100,000 copies. I didn't look at that as the success. The success was the fact that I did some really memorable music on which really we created out of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Real proud of us. But it did get a little frustrating that we couldn't really get it off the ground enough to sustain, the four guys. And I recognized, maybe I want to do a solo record, and then, we kind of took that break in 2000. There were a few things we did after that, but not recording-wise. I
Well, you know, that was just to interject real quick, when the grunge music came in, that killed a lot off.
Yeah.
And then between 94 and about 2007, end of 2007, things really were disjointed for a long time. Eminem is the one name I've asked people, mentioned to people when I go, okay, let's go through the boy bands, let's go through this, go through that. And the one guy from about 94 through 2004 that really had the staying power above everybody, except for maybe some of the country music, was Eminem. So it just shows that kind of things got really disjointed. You didn't see rock and roll come back till about the end of 2007 as far as radio goes. So that even though the stuff in Union is really, really good, I don't know that much out there, barring your Kiss or barring your AC/DC, if you follow me, was going to have much of a fair shot at making it anyways, because it was just kind of just, and you know what I'm talking about, this very disjumbled mess, kind of like back in the 70s when disco almost killed rock.
Right. No, we were aware that music changed and that was a problem, and you know, we were up against a really, you know, it was a very difficult time in the business where in some ways Nirvana and some of those bands, as good as they were, they even hurt bands like Kiss, you know,
yeah,
no doubt about it. But again, the music stood for what we wanted to do. You can't always, you know, you can do it as best as you can, but you certainly can't affect the timing of things, you know, in the same way that, well, why did the reunion happen in '96 for Kiss? Well, there was a catalyst with the Unplugged. It was 20 years now.
Right.
Prior to that, it wouldn't have flown, you know what I mean, and it wouldn't have worked, and it wouldn't have been as important. So, you know, there's always the timing issues, and that's something you can't, you know, you really can't kind of control.
Well, Bruce, let's go from Union to what the Grand Funk next, correct, or is it the solo album next?
No, really, I started to do Audio Dog, and during the time of me working on Audio Dog, actually I got the call from Don Brewer, like, what, you know, we'd like to, you know, would you have some interest in being involved in a new version of Grand Funk? He flew me up to Michigan, and I really liked the guys. I got what they wanted to do, and I was really, really honored to have the opportunity, you know, and can you believe it's 10 years now, you know, which is wonderful.
Yeah, so what is that like? That's a lot. I mean, that is the very, but just like you did a stint with Foreigner, you walked in, and it's kind of like you've had some very, very interesting opportunities. I mean, not only were you in Kiss, Grand Funk was this very, very, just like we covered Sweet recently, and that's another one. That's a very, very legendary. It's a band that makes an big impression, has left his mark everywhere. I'm from Michigan originally, so those guys are just north up in Flint. So what was that whole experience like, being a part of that? What was it like going on the road and performing with them? Was it kind of like, this is cool while I was in Kiss, that's not as cool as it's like, wow, this is Grand Funk Railroad. This is like really cool.
I mean, I was very aware of Grand Funk, and I was a big fan of some of the big stuff that happened to them, especially like between the Shea Stadium, you know, gig and the record that had More an American Band on it.
Yeah.
And so I got what their legacy was really about. And, you know, I met Don Brewer from touring actually back with Bolton years ago. You know, Bolton actually was a solo artist for a little while too, and I was his guitarist to this one live tour and one of his records. So we opened up for Bob Seger, and at the time Don was playing drums for Bob Seger. So, you know, I liked Don. I mean, I knew what a tremendous drummer he was. So I was really flattered, and I was a big fan of Mel's because of his really thunderous bass playing and everything from all their records. So, and I knew they were really excelled live. You know, I think they were always a better band live than on the record. So, but it was fun. I mean, the singer Max worked with 38 Special, but the guy worked with everybody. He did background vocals with Motley Crue and recorded with Glenn Frey and the Eagles. And the guy just very, very, very talented, you know, musician. So I saw, you know, at the time, first time we got together, the keyboard player Tim, who was another really talented guy with a big resume. We just didn't. He wasn't even there yet, but I already knew that this could be really cool, and I had a lot to learn. And you know, I'm a good guy for that, where I need to understand the signature riffs of a guitarist. So in other words, even though I was a fan Foreigner, I wasn't, like, he wasn't one of my guitar heroes, but I knew where Mark was coming from. And so once we started rehearsing and everything, and, I remember we did a gig late 1999, that was our first show, but really it started in 2000. And here we are 10 years later, as a terrific live band. It doesn't matter where we play, from a casino to a city festival to a classic rock show, whatever it's going to be. I know we always bring the house down. By the middle of the set, we really have a meeting out of our hands, and they just, go screaming, wanting more. So, and for me as a guitarist, I'm playing with one of the best drummers in the business.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I just kind of like, all I do is listen to Don. I just hone into him, and I get a solo just about in every song, and I've reminded a lot of my Kiss fans that I know you don't think you know Grand Funk, because obviously they made their mark a little bit before Kiss started to become popular.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of these songs, are very, very radio famous.
Even stuff like My Captain and stuff like that. I mean, they have such a catalog.
Yep.
Like a lot, like Kiss does, like a lot of bands do that are very, and AC/DC, et cetera, and even like Jim Croce. They're just very prolific and just stay with people in their hearts and minds for a long time.
Yeah, so I'm just really, really impressed with the set that we have, the reaction that we get. So it never bores me. I'm always really, really excited about the shows. And now's the season when we're really busy, and I'm traveling almost every weekend through probably almost through October.
Okay.
And it's like I said, it's been a great gig for me, and it's different from Kiss because it isn't go on the road for 6 months at a time. It's all fly dates, so we fly in and out, reconvene, and we have a backline truck needed, so it's not like the 18-wheeler, 7 trucks of lights and lasers and all that.
Right.
But still, when we go on stage, it's for me, it's the same thing. I want to play great and embrace the crowd. I have that opportunity at every Grand Funk gig.
Absolutely. Now, I want to ask you a question, because I've seen you about 3 times, and this is for one of the times I saw it. So the first time I saw you, now, were you in the Eric Singer project first, or were you in Foreigner first? Because those are kind of similar time frames. But Eric Singer over in Budapest, Hungary, I saw you in 2007. I know you were doing Foreigner in 2008. Which one kind of came first on that?
I'm still confused when you mentioned Foreigner. If you're talking about the rock band Foreigner?
Yeah.
I didn't do anything with them. I'm confused.
Okay, somebody had mentioned that you were in Foreigner for like a brief second in there.
Nope.
Okay, sorry, that's my mistake. I apologize. We'll just... Okay, I'll retract that. Yep. Eric Singer project. I was over in Budapest, Hungary, and I was going over there to Europe. And I found out the Eric Singer project's playing. I'm looking at this. I'm going, okay, let's stop in Hungary, big metal area. Let's see what's going on. And I found out Eric Singer project and John Corabi and this and Bruce Howard Kulick and I go.
I'll give you the history of Eric Singer project. It really started off probably as late as as long ago as like '99, where we were offered through one of our friends wanted us to do a cover record. Thought it'd be really cool. All right, Bruce and John have union, but like Eric would like to record something. So what if Eric did we did all covers, and it was just a bunch of our friends. So it was me and John, and at the time this guy Carl Cochran actually. And then from there we did some expos, we did some gigs, some of the Kiss expos we performed, and then we realized this is fun. Maybe we can do something with this. And Eric and I later on, once I started to go off and tour in Europe, and I met a promoter that I felt very comfortable who could tour manage and book the right kind of dates for us. As soon as he got involved, and actually by then it was Chuck Garrett on bass, because that's Alice Cooper's bassist.
Right.
And Eric at the time was with Alice Cooper. And what was good about Chuck was Chuck loved some of the Gene songs from Kiss. So when we were covering Kiss, we had that covered. So we always came up with an eclectic set list. It was really just a jam band where we were covering hits from the bands that we're in and bands that we love. And it obviously grew, and the more that Eric was involved with Kiss, the more interest we got, the last time we went to Europe last February, we were booked in more places. We were able to tour for 3 weeks straight. We did really great business. And because obviously between my schedule and especially Eric being very busy with Kiss, we haven't been able to do anything since then. But Chuck, John, and I and Eric really hope to do some more touring when we can revamp the set list. And obviously I'd love for us to play a song or two from BK3 because I have just about all of them on some of the tracks, you know. But it's just a fun jam band, really, you know, and it's only when our schedules permit that we can do it.
Right, we're going to talk about BK3 and about 2 questions here. Next thing is Monster Circus. How did that, for nobody, if the people don't know, Monster Circus was the special thing that they had to help where you had John Corabi, yourself, you had Rudy Sarzo. Help me out with this.
First it was Bobby Rock for the first gig, but then it was Fred Coury.
Right.
And Dee Snider was like the special front man kind of thing.
Right.
You know, there was this guy, Tony, the guy that was actually the bassist, Tony Montana, the bassist from Great White.
Right.
Who was actually a guitarist. It was really his idea, and him and Fred got together, and I was on the short list of guitarists to ask, and the Hilton was looking for some sort of interesting rock and roll kind of thing, and I gave it my all. I knew I couldn't always do it, but that was not going to be the problem because they wanted to rotate people in and out of it. Right. But unfortunately, I think it started in a bad time for Vegas. It was at the start of the recession last year, you know. I think the gigs were great. We had a great set list. We had dancers and circus performers, and it was a great concept, you know, and I was really proud of it. But it didn't have legs, so I don't know what the future is, except that I was involved with about 10 of the gigs, and I had to, I got busy with Grand Funk for the last month of gigs that they continued on.
Right.
I wound up, I couldn't be involved with, but they hadn't done any since then, unfortunately. So who knows what's going to happen, but the way I always look at any situation, no matter how successful it goes, is like, so, you know, how is it working with all these guys? Like, I never got a chance to really play with Rudy Sarzo, although, of course, I knew Rudy for years, you know, so now it's great that I've actually, you know, worked with the guy. And Fred Coury, I actually did a little bit of work with before he even filled in for Brent couldn't tour with Union at one point when John and I got booked to do some stuff, and we brought Fred Coury along. So,
right.
You know, there are, you know, I always take that with me, though, at every situation. It was like, Dee Snider never backed him up, obviously, and he's such a terrific singer and frontman. So it was a lot of fun. I was kind of sad that it didn't continue because it would have been fun to do, but...
Dee seems like he would be hysterical to be with. He seems a little ADHD like I am, and he seems like he would just be life of the party, really hysterical to hang out with in the
Yeah, he's great to hang with, and he's very, he's another pro. I mean, he's a real businessman, and I got a lot of respect for the guy, you know, and I know he does stuff with my brother as well, you know. He's a really talented guy.
So now, just before we go to BK3, side note, you play with Sun City Sinners as well, and kind of, do you do things like that, Sun City Sinners, or Todd Kearns from Age of Electric, who's on the road with Slash right now, Brent Muscat from Faster Pussycat, Rod Conway, one of the later drummers for Raging Slap, and they just would bring in different music, great stars to perform with them. And you got an opportunity to do that one time, and have you done other things like that? I mean, I'm sure you probably knew Brent and Todd, and did they just kind of, did you say like, hey, I'm in town, connect later? Did they say? Yeah,
no, they approached me because they knew that they had an interesting, you know, angle, that they were a strong cover band, and that featured some, you know, players, you know, that could come up, and then they can hone in on some of those songs, you know, that, you know, in my case, it was Kiss songs, of course.
Right.
And you know, it's funny because Brent Fitz knew Todd Kearns really well, and
right.
Todd to help support me on my the gig that I did at the Cat Club here in LA when BK3 came out. So, and obviously, you know, I'm very, very happy about their success to move on to Slash because I couldn't really commit to any touring because of Grand Funk and all. So now there they are off in they're in Europe right now playing these festivals with like 80,000 people, you know, which is great. But I I always enjoyed that. Sometimes it was, Grandpa was going to be in town for a gig, and then at midnight I'd be on stage with the Sin City Sinners. So that was very fun.
To finish that up, is it kind of fun when you get the opportunity like that? Well, you get to pick the songs and just jam it out?
Yeah, but I'll admit that I know what the crowd would probably want to hear. So,
right.
I'm going to choose a lot of the hits that I'm known for through Kiss. So, but that kind of stuff's always fun to do.
Let's go into BK3. Now, I got this. I saw this. It was, I believe it's Frontier Records. Like I said, I'm a little bit off today. And I saw this, and I asked the person for it. I'm going, okay, now sometimes when you get an album, I don't care what it is, you're not sure what to expect, and other times you get it and you know it's got to be good, but you're not sure what it sounds like. And yours was one of those, I knew it was going to be good because of who you are and the talent level that you've been involved with and all the professional people have been involved with. I just didn't know if it was going to be kind of like a Kiss thing, or this thing, or that thing, or whatever, and I got it, and it's very diverse. You have a great set list of people that you work with. You've assembled a great cast of musicians to back you and work with you. And from start to finish, this is an album that when you put it in, and not just saying this because we're on the phone, my writer who's working the review feels the same way because I tell him all about it. It's just a really, really excellent, very, very solid, very, very top-notch rock album, but you're not just straight in your face. You have the highs and the lows as far as the tempo, the melody, and everything, and it's very, very well done. Now you have John Corabi on there. You have Gene Simmons is on there for a song. You have Gene's son is on there for a song. And there's somebody else on there too. I can't remember. I can't remember somebody.
Tiger and Tobias Sammet from Ed Guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was the process like when you did, as opposed to your other albums? First one you were saying was some stuff that you had released from one of your first bands, never got out there. What's this process for BK3 been like, and what gave you the idea to do BK3?
Well, quite honestly, first of all, thanks, for digging it and everything. But when I got involved with Jeremy Rubolino, the guy who produced the record with me, he really had a vision for just doing the best possible solo record. He was a huge Kiss fan, and he's related to Bob Ezrin, who was such a famous producer.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a lot younger. I mean, he just turned 30 like a year ago. And obviously, we started working on this record like almost 6 years ago. But I liked that he was like really into it, and he had a lot to prove. And we just made a commitment that, there'd be no compromise for the record. And that would obviously mean it would cost me more, because we did want to use better studios and better engineers and everything. And if the song wasn't right, we would do it again, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But in the end, that was the best way to get an amazing result. And I'm really excited about the reaction to the record from the fans and just the quality of the work. And everything was top-notch. I mean, I treated it as if I had a $250,000 budget, even though it didn't cost me that. But I'm just saying, I wanted to make this thing look like a real world-class record. And everybody came to the party. I mean, the fact that Gene would do the song for me was a real thrill, and I was very fortunate that he was into being creative like that with me for the record, and then offering his son Nick to perform on the album. It's all really, really exciting, and it just kept going on and on, where it wasn't that hard for me then to ask some of the other special guests to be involved. So from top to bottom, I'm just thrilled with the record, from the performances to the songwriting and the production, and I'm just very, very proud that I got it done in the way that Jeremy and I planned it.
What is your favorite song off the album, and why?
Well, the most personal one for me is the one called I'll Survive, because I had this crazy incident on Sunset Boulevard where, I nearly got killed. Somebody was shooting a gun down the block by the Rainbow. And,
oh, jeez.
The lyrics kind of talk about it in a poetic way, and one of the bullets went through my leg, the other one grazed my head, so I obviously could have been killed by just an inch or two, or crippled. And it was a miracle that I walked away from that the way I did, and then on top of it, that was the first song I actually wrote for the record. So,
okay.
Yeah. And sonically and everything, the song came out like this kind of, I always wanted it to have this dreamy rock Pink Floyd vibe, you know, like kind of Kiss meets Pink Floyd. And I think I accomplished that with that song.
Well, when I gave you the Compliments album, that's looking at it objectively and not putting my personal opinion. It's just that solid. What has your feedback been from fans and from different people about the album?
Well, they know it's. I mean, as much as I have a lot of fans that really enjoy Audio Dog and Transformer, they really feel that this is my best, and I get things like, it doesn't leave my record player, and I never get tired of it. It's from top to bottom. It's a terrific record. So I get a lot of accolades for it, and I'm real grateful for that. And you know, there's the Kiss diehards that, well, it's not a Kiss record, so they're not gonna like invest the $10 to get one, you know. But the truth is, they're missing out because it's not only does it have Gene on it, but I think the song for song it's worth its weight, you know, in a bigger way than they might think, you know. And it's not just some solo record from a guitar player just trying to show off. These are songs, you know. There's a real there's performances from a lot of famous people. It's put together in a very you know, big way that I wanted it to be. It kind of has a cohesiveness about it, even though it does have so many different people singing and being featured, and me as well, of course.
Right.
You know, so, but I like the fact that somehow it all comes together and works. So I feel like a big goal is accomplished.
Okay, we're going to get ready to wrap this up, but I want to the last couple things we're going to do is I'm going to give you a chance to plug and promote everything. I've started doing that with last couple of interviews. MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, the website, phone line areas, and now I'm going to give you the last question. Do you take 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to say anything to anybody? But here's one for you, and I know that sometimes when you do an interview, there's something maybe on your mind you've always wanted to say before. You know, we're kind of do that too. It's kind of a goodbye, hello type of thing. But what is one thing that you've always wanted to have a chance to express to not just your fans and Kiss fans and Union fans and Grand Funk fans, but just music fans in general, maybe musicians? What's one thing you've always wanted the opportunity to say in an interview that you never ever got a chance to be wanted to express?
Well, I've done so many interviews. I've basically spoke my mind through many of them, I think. But, well, I mean, I think one thing I don't always get into would be kind of like that, what I was, you know, making reference to before, that some of the, you know, I find it really mind-boggling to me for someone to be really passionate about the band and not want to experiment and spread out and check out Ace's solo record or my solo record or anything related. Because when I was growing up, it didn't matter. When Cream broke up, I had to hear Ginger Baker's record, you know. Because, you know, and he was just the drummer, you know. I mean, he didn't write songs. He might have sang one song. You get what I mean? But I had to have it, you know. So I find it kind of odd that, first of all, here I am creating brand new music, you know, and spending a lot of, you know, real passion and time and commitment and money to make the best thing I can. And I know that, you know, there's times I'll do a Kiss Expo and somebody, all they want to hand me is the Crazy Nights album.
Yeah.
And they are not necessarily interested in, like, having a new musical, you know, like meal, or shall I say.
Right.
It just shocks me a bit, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, Paul McCartney doesn't sell Beatle numbers, okay? And he puts out amazing solo records.
Mm-hmm.
Not every one is as good as the previous one, but every one of them has at least 3 or 4 amazing Paul McCartney songs.
Well, absolutely.
And I don't get why people don't support it, okay? So I guess what I want to say is, I know that in the same way you mentioned earlier on in the interview, I didn't actually get that Hendrix record, but I will get it because I probably have every Hendrix bootleg ever existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a little different. Some unreleased stuff and a couple remasters, and it's. I think this would have really blown Jimi Hendrix up even a lot further, if you can imagine that, because. Like Valley's Nocturne and Lullaby for the Summer, when you hear those, I think they're just going to kind of melt your heart and blow you away.
Right, sure. But you get what I mean. That
yeah.
I will have it. I will get it. And I just, I don't understand why a lot of Beatles fans don't support Paul McCartney, or why a lot of Kiss fans. And I'm not complaining. This one sold a lot better than my other two solo records because of all the exposure I got. But why they don't, embrace it even more? I just don't understand.
Right. No, I don't either. I've never understood that. I used to have the opposite thought, just before we finish this up, that the Kiss fans did buy all the solo stuff. I thought that was the kicker, but there's
it's important to a point, but still, when I see, like I say, when I'm looking at 300 people that come through an expo, and if I sell about 50, that's a good percentage. But why aren't I selling 100? You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly.
I could always say that. I know the fan that's just going to come up with a Crazy Nights album or a Revenge album and have me sign it.
Yeah. So let's do this, Bruce. Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, websites.
I mean, all the links are off of my website. It's really the easiest thing to do is to go to ഃkjuːlɪk.net.
Okay.
And
first of all, I may say this too for people that don't know how to spell your name, because there may be somebody.
Yeah, ＫULICK.
Okay.
ＫULICK. And if you Google my name, I hate when I hear from someone, I don't know how to reach you. I have my webmasters who take care of things for the website, which is so informative.
Right.
There's so much content on, and right there on the homepage is a place to look at what my Twitter thing is, what my Facebook address is, what my MySpace information. It's all there on my website, and I'm very active with the whole networking online, and I'm always posting new things and pictures and guitars and where I'm playing and what I did, and what's going on. So it's obviously been a great way for me to keep in touch with the fans.
Now, I wanted to ask that because I know we've been on here so long, so that's been you've been kind of excited and like the whole social networking thing then.
Well, I think it has a lot of value. I mean, a lot of people are just playing silly games on the internet. And that's okay too if that's what they want to do, but certainly it's a valuable way to let the fans know what's going on.
Okay, now I'm going to do this. First of all, I want to say thank you so much. I know we probably went a little longer than you'd planned, but there was a lot to talk about, and I didn't want to just shortcut it or just go, okay, so what's on tour for the next year, the current album, and just do that, because I think this is very important, what we did. So and then just hang on the phone when we're done for 1 second, because I want to shoot you that Frank Marino stuff, and also send you this in a few minutes when I'm done with it. But I want you to, this is how I like to enter all my interviews, I want you to take 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to say anything you want to anybody. One of my running jokes is you want to tell somebody to F off. Actually, I had one guy do that once. It got through me on left field, but that's kind of the warm up, relax you after all this thing type of joke. But seriously, if you want to say hi to Mom and Dad, you want to say hi to Gene and Paul, do you want to say hi to Nick, you want to say hi to John Corabi, family, friends, Bob Ezrin, whoever, anybody you want to say hi to, this is your time, and I'm going to let you have it.
Okay. I really just like to thank all my fans. I mean, I know who you are because I get the passionate emails and you're the best guitar player ever, and it does really mean a lot to me. And unfortunately, the ones who don't care about me usually leave me alone, which I'm very, very grateful for. Okay, but really the exposure I've had through those years of Kiss has introduced me to so many people that it really absolutely felt. It feels great that even all these years after me not being in the band, they still remember who I am and are supportive. So I want to just thank all of them, and the ones who aren't aware that there's a new BK3 record out, they should get on the program because I think they're really missing out on hearing something great.
Oh, they need to go back because I can attest to this. We have a great review. It's phenomenal. Don't believe me, go YouTube it.
Exactly.
Anyways, thank you very much. Bruce, hang in the line for just a second.
Okay, no problem.